So I'd like to go first of all now to Bina Palikal from the Communities Discriminated on the Basis of Work and Descent stakeholder group and the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights. Bina.
Thanks, Ollie, and thanks to all the other panelists here, and thank you for the opportunity. I read from the political declaration that says the achievement of the SDGs is in peril. At the midpoint of the 2030 agenda, we are alarmed that only 12% of the SDGs are on track and 30% remain unchanged or below the 2015 baseline. The progress on some of these SDGs is either moving much too slowly or has regressed. Millions of people have fallen into poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. I'm sure this is not something that we had envisioned when collectively the SDGs, with so much of fanfare in 2015, was actually signed by many countries right here in this building. Who's to blame? Is it the UN? Is it us sitting here? Is it civil society? Is it the states? I think we can all collectively take blame for this. That while we come here every year to monitor the SDGs, on the ground, people are dying of human rights abuses, lynchings. In several developing countries, people are still dying of hunger. To achieving these goals seems so far off for them. But I do not want to talk only about the problems or the issues. What is it that we can do? What are the solutions that we can look at? There is a cost of conflict and strife and wars if we don't listen to the people of the most marginalized. And I agree with my co-panelist who wanted a convention for older people. I also would like to say that we also would like to demand a convention for people discriminated on work and descent because they're a population of almost 300 people. Regarding the visibility, we have to bring people from the marginalized at the table. They have to be at the center of what we're looking at, whether it is communities discriminated on work and descent, whether it is the indigenous people, whether it's the LGBTQI, and the trans within these communities are further marginalized because of the structures that we have in place. We need to ensure that to have action on the ground, we need to have sufficient budgetary allocations. So when we're talking about financing for development, who are those partnerships that we should have? Private sector, I don't see much action being taken from the private sector. So can we have the private sector to invest more so that specifically in the South, we ensure that they put in money and budgets to ensure that the SDGs are implemented? When we look at the disaster risk reduction, climate change, the impact of climate change and the disasters are most felt by the communities who are most marginalized. Like, for example, Dalits in South Asia, who are mostly who live at these low-lying plains, which is mostly affected by floods and cyclones. What are we doing about that? Can we ensure that while ensuring policies, we need these people at the table? And finally, I'd like to say that it's critical to bring in intersectionality within these communities, women, children, trans, LGBTQI, within the communities discriminated by work and descent. Because unless we do not bring them to the center of the discourse, then who are the people who will be left behind? Finally, I'd like to say the ambassador talked about anger. How do we positively turn that anger into action? And I'd like to see that when we go back after this few days that we're spending here, we go back with some action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bina. And